You are capable of learning certain tell signs, soft skills, diplomacy. You can enrich your vocabulary with the thesaurus so you can adjust tones. Remove words like help and put in assist, guide, and lend a hand. Never say, excuse me, I'm sorry, it's for my clarification. Simple little things to keep conversations moving forward and not to provoke egos. And these are the sort of things that you can make it as a career. You become very marketable if you have these ability to deliver a message in such a way not only is it clear, but people might remember it and ponder it.
Voices with value, stories with soul, tools for transformation. This is Innovation Insights. Innovate, so you do not stagnate. Welcome to another episode of Innovation Insights, where we dive deep into the minds shaping the future of industries through innovation, creativity, and groundbreaking research. We believe that innovation happens in all aspects of life. I am your host, Dr. Eulanda Sanders. I am thrilled to welcome a visionary leader whose professional journey is a dynamic and inspiring one. Richard Blank is the Chief Executive Officer of Costa Rica's Call Center, a division of Cheyenne Consultants. Since 2008, Richard has led with innovation, blending advanced telemarketing strategies, interpersonal soft skills, rhetoric, and gamification into a unique and effective call center culture. His vision quest began with a bold move. At the age of 27. He relocated to Costa Rica to train over 500 employees at one of the region's largest call centers. Since then, he has coached over 10,000 bilingual telemarketers, building a reputation as a leader in employee training, motivational speaking, and phonetic microexpression reading. Richard holds a bachelor's degree in communication in Spanish from the University of Arizona and a certificate in language proficiency from the University of Sevilla in Spain. He was honored as a keynote speaker for Philadelphia's Abington High School's 68th National Honor Society induction ceremony and was inducted into the 2023 Hall of Fame for Business. He continues to give back to his alma mater by endowing an annual scholarship for students planning to study world languages at the university level. From his strategic partnerships with international organizations to his passion for gamification and soft skill development, Richard brings energy, creativity, and heart to every endeavor. I am so excited to dive into his story today. Richard, welcome to the Innovation Insights podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Doctor, I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited to have a great conversation today and share some tips and tricks with you and your amazing audience.
Well, thank you. And please just refer to me as Eulanda. Please.
I know, but I know a doctor, so I got to play it cool. All right, Eulanda, let's do it.
Oh, well, and we connected through social media. And so I'm so happy that you reached out to me. And I always like to let our audience know how the connections are made, because there's so many great ways to connect with people in the world these days. And so we connected through Podpage, and I was so happy that you reached out and wanted to be on the podcast. So,
of course,
tell us a little bit about your journey. So you started off in Northeast Philadelphia, and now you're in Costa Rica.
That's right. When I graduated the proud Abington High School back in '91, I decided to get past parents' guilt, not pay attention to naysayers and gray believers, and be a Spanish major at the University of Arizona. A lot of people go into medical school and law school. I just didn't have the maturity, the grades, or the discipline, but I knew I loved languages. And so I convinced my parents, let me be a linguist. Little did I know that I was able to get a nice degree, made myself marketable. So I had a couple jobs prior to Costa Rica, the importers of Corona beer. I was also interning for Telemundo just to sharpen those skills. But at 27, I had a 1 in a million opportunity. I was able to move to Costa Rica for just a couple months, work at my friend's call center, teach English. Well, sometimes you shed skin, you get the sixth sense and some butterflies. I knew I was at the right place at the right time. So I stayed, learned the business from the inside out, not at sea level. And then when I had maturity and impulse control in my mid-30s, I decided to throw my hat in the ring and start this call center with my wife. And here we are today, 18 years later.
Oh, that is amazing. That is amazing. And what do you love about call centers? You must have a love for that communication method and working with customers that way.
What I love most is getting hung up on when I call you at dinner. No, I'm only kidding. No, seriously. I see it as the art of speech. And I think these are beautiful soft skills that people can develop, especially in this controlled environment where you can speak to hundreds of people a day. Who really gets that unless you're a celebrity? And so you are capable of learning certain tell signs, soft skills, diplomacy. You can enrich your vocabulary with the thesaurus so you can adjust tones. Remove words like help and put in assist, guide, and lend a hand. Never say, excuse me, I'm sorry. It's for my clarification. Simple little things to keep conversations moving forward and not to provoke egos. And these are the sort of things that you can make it as a career. You become very marketable if you have these ability to deliver a message in such a way not only is it clear, but people might remember it and ponder it. So I think it's like in battle, the long bow. It really does change the situation.
I love that you say that. And my sister, my younger sister, who has her doctorate in human resources, but
Okay.
her first degree was in communication. And one summer she worked at a call center.
Ooh,
And I love that you say that it's a great training ground for enhancing your communication skills. And so, and you given some examples. Would you talk a little bit more about the training that goes into being an operator within a call center? What
abs-
is it, a like a 6-month training or 2-month training or continuous training?
well, that's an excellent question, Yolanda. First, let me just finish off on an idea. Most people today are communicating through non-voice. They'll do text and email and chatting. That's fine, it's convenient, but it leaves room for misinterpretation. And you don't really get that sort of sense of someone's feel at the moment. So, what sort of training do I do? Well, first, it's confidence. Most people would rather do anything else but stand up and do public speaking or telemarketing. Well, just like Indiana Jones, if you're afraid to go in the cave and he does, then he gets all the riches and all the gold. It's a hero's journey, being bold and brave. Look at the education you and your younger sister have. In the beginning, you thought it was just a mountain you couldn't climb, and people have tried and quit. And, there's a lot of weight that people can put on you. And if you can eliminate that weight, chances are you can go further. And so something now that we're older, we look back on seemed impossible. It's just part of the process. And if you don't hit the gym, you don't get stronger. And for me, I saw it as dedicated practice. I can understand if people go to school, study, and that's it, or they go to a job, come home, and just check out. But if you go above and beyond when the cameras are off outside the classroom, like I did with Spanish, I looked for the movies, the newspapers, the people to sit and have coffee with so I could speak for 2 hours. And it's almost like Daniel's son in The Karate Kid. Miyagi wasn't around all the time. The kid had to be on the boat and on the beach by himself. And so when someone practices the violin and the piano lessons in between lessons, it's obvious when the teacher sees that you've improved. And so we have the technology to record ourselves, which is great. So you can analyze that kind of like a phonetic error. And I can tell when people are engaged, or they'll come to me and they'll ask me about definitions of certain words because English is their second language. They may be attuned to the North American market, but you and I need to explain what the shore means. Someone mentioned cheese fries or who Brett Favre is. I got to explain this stuff. And so when we do this, it's just a beautiful way for someone to really enrich their humanities. And so for me, I can't take away the lure and the lust of this language on the romanticism behind it, the beauty of it, not being a Shakespearean poet, but you could say something to somebody that can make them feel so good that they'll remember it 50 years from now and thank you for it. And so I've had certain teachers and mentors that gave me such positive reinforcement that I can always pull that out of my back pocket on a rainy, sad day, look at that and remember who was the champ and where to go. And so it's very delicate, this new generation, in regards to not constructive criticism, but it's stimulation. They sometimes are so used to being isolated or having the luxury of reading something and waiting to respond to it in writing, where when you're face to face, it's like being in a boxing ring. You can hit the bag and practice all you want, but when you're in the ring, it's real. Why? Because there's 10% zig and zag, Eulanda. There's always going to be a wild card. And so if you're not capable of showing depth and getting off of that script and actually being loosey-goosey a little bit with somebody, it will almost be impossible to catch the tail of the tiger. And so I'm just trying, and you understand this about balance and focus and even core breathing, so you can
Mhm.
really stay in the now. And so I hope I explain that kind of in a philosophical way.
Oh, that you gave so many wonderful gems because communication is important. And that is one thing that at Innovation Insights we focus on is storytelling.
Yeah.
And that's part of the soft skills that any professional needs to have and be able to tell. And I feel coming out of COVID, some of the younger generations have some challenges with being confident, as you mentioned, and comfortable communicating, interacting face to face. Yes, it's easier to do it via text or email. Do people do email anymore? I think they just do text most of the time.
Mhm.
So thank you for that. I also want to go back to, you talked about the hero journey, and that
Yes.
is a huge part of storytelling. And how has what's your hero journey, and how have you used that within your business?
One of my favorite images is when I was in kindergarten, they're talking about the country mouse and the city mouse. And it showed the country mouse going to the big city to put it down. And it showed him walking down this country road with the stick and the bandana on the back and the sun. And I thought that was one of the most amazing things. First and foremost, he's by himself, so his parents aren't grilling him. Secondly, he's liberated. And the third, really, that imagery to me is that anything's possible. It's Eos. It's the dawn of the new day. Anything can be done. It's a phoenix rebirth. And so I love these things. I You cannot lose the lust of life. Depending on your age, even, you might not be able to do sports anymore, and you might be past the time to do certain things, but you should always find a way every day to not only be grateful, but to see the first downs compared to the touchdowns and see the progress. It's a beautiful thing. And so for me, it was a lot of expectations. My grandfather went to Harvard Law. My father was in Columbia Business School. My older brother went to Washington and Lee University. What? When I was thinking about that, I realized that I could have potentially forced myself in it, but I would have been stretched thin. It's like that very small cage for that beautiful bird with large wings. And I could picture myself, Pink Floyd, The Wall, being a brick, walking into that meat grinding machine, any sort of imaginary thing you could see it being pushed into a Japanese subway car, or one of the nameless individuals walking down the New York sidewalks in a suit like they do in those imagery. I couldn't see that. I'm not saying that I'm special, but my goodness gracious, I wanted to step out of that current in the river and get out of that for a second and just to look left and right before the next 50 years would go by. And so, as a young man, I had to make exceptionally big decisions as a boy. But I knew this. I love this language thing. And outside of my bubble and family and friends, when we would go to a restaurant around the way and I saw a name tag that said Maria or Jesus, I wasn't making fun of anybody. I was using my basic Spanish of my limited vocabulary and grammar to speak to these individuals, and the smile. It's almost like getting a goodie bag at a party. They'd always adjust my grammar a bit and give me three or four really cool vocabularies and a certain dicho and expression to say. And I'm like, my man. And so my parents would see the gleam in the smile, and I realized I wasn't breaking a window, getting in trouble, not being stupid, or being one of those kids that act out. This was some sort of interesting, mature thing that I was cracking a code on. And so I then said to my parents at 18, I do not want to study these other things. It had to be languages. And also, in state tuition in Arizona was exceptionally responsible. And living in Tucson was very reasonable and cost effective.
Mm.
I was being a really good kid then. And so these certain decisions that had to be made needs to be built on momentum, and you need to do the trial and the error. I just can't put all my money on red on a roulette table. You just don't do things like that. And so certain stages was shown that I built up to it. And when you say people were afraid to, well, you're supposed to be afraid, but you're supposed to do it anyway. But my goodness gracious, if you practice this 1,000 times, then get on stage and play the piano in front of your whole school. Okay, you're nervous, but you've done it. And so to me, the more practicing that I was doing, I knew I was getting stronger. And instead of being 90% unknown, 10% guaranteed, the odds started changing where it was 80% proficient and 20% wild card. So at least it put some spice on the conversation every day. And so I was able to ride that wave, Eulanda. I could float. And the longer that it lasted, I realized I could breathe longer. And as I said, there was a certain point where it wasn't even funny or cute as a parlor trick to my parents and friends and acquaintances. They realized this kid's on his own now. I can't even relate to it. And so you sometimes have to walk alone, and it shouldn't be a forced march. Put on comfortable shoes and just take your time doing these things like the tortoise compared to the hare. And that's why the tortoise always wins.
Okay, I love that you said about walking alone. Sometimes you have to do that. You obviously are just a true innovator because you're willing to take risks. You're willing to take risks early on in your life.
That's right.
So, how did that set you up for bootstrapping a business in Costa Rica?
That's an excellent and intelligent question. I'm a guest in somebody else's country. So let's be realistic. How many years would I need to invest to learn the law, human resources, the banking system, all that stuff? I can hire specialists to advise me. That's what CEOs do. They have heads of department that gives them reports every day. They're the ones that went to school for 4 years. And so once again, don't expect me to be cooking, cleaning, serving the food, and hosting. Couldn't do it. I couldn't wear all hats. My specialty, you understand, is like yourself, as being a linguist, as a motivator. I can keep that sort of structure. But I needed a chief technical officer. I needed a local attorney and accountant. And I also needed the face man to go out for me and negotiate my computers and other equipment. Because if you and I go out there, you know they're going to charge 50% more. We're gringos. And I understand the game, but then again, let's play the game. Let's do it properly. And so I don't want people to think that it was easy. No, I was the trunk of the tree. I needed branches and roots. But then let's also look at the second thing. A lot of people will overextend themselves. It's always like watching those repo shows where someone's having their BMW, Porsche, or Lamborghini repossessed. Well, it's nice you had it, but you couldn't afford it. And so my grandma said, always act your wage. And grandpa said, if you can't pay for it in cash, you don't do it. And so you wonder why I started my business at 35 and why I purchased the building 6 years ago, because I'm older. I wanted to make sure that I had established clients, I had capital, and it was the right time for me to make that next move. When I first started in 2008, I was renting a turnkey station at a blended center. Like, imagine just renting a space in an internet cafe. It's not fancy, but guess what, man? I could put 10 people in there. I could start. And then after 2.5 years, I then rented space and I was building out rows at a time and I started purchasing equipment for a server room. Fast forward 6 years, I had even more capital, more agents and everything, where then I purchased a building, put on a third floor, and then went there. It's almost like the game of life where you started in the tent and you finished in the mansion. And so I know you want it fast, and that's fine. And I know you think fancy makes it better. Sometimes not. Eulanda, I could take you to the five-star most expensive restaurant in town and we could have the best time. Or we could go on a picnic, right? and put that blanket under the most cool tree with the wind and the views and animals running around. And you will say, Richard, this is 10 times better than being at the other place because we made the sandwiches, we walked there, we made extra efforts. My point being is
Right.
like in Rocky 3 when he lost to Mr. T, Clubber Lang, he went from the fancy gym to the gym that had the dripping pipes and Eye of the Tiger. Man, the first gym I worked out in Philadelphia was a place called Ed's Gym on the top of the Foxcroft Pavilion in Jenkintown. That's where the Goldbergs are filmed, by the way. And I'm dealing with guys back in high school that were coming off of the construction sites. They were taking off their jackets and wearing these wife beaters, but were lifting hard, listening to YSP and MMR with the old posters of Corey Everson and Heather Thomas on the walls. And these were real men. And if you didn't know your gym etiquette to put your weights away, to wipe down the machines, and to even ask certain things so there's groove, that so you learn. And for me, I always felt that the good influences were the perfect examples of the ones that just stepped up to the plate and didn't spin it. And so I always gravitated to those that ran through first base, that showed up on time and did their job. They didn't have to kiss butt or play office politics to get ahead. These were people that had the core respect of the people around them. And so that's what I looked for as growing my team down here. I didn't want the fast talkers. They come and go. But it's the individual that says the right thing at the right time when you didn't expect it. Those are the ones you break bread with and last a long time.
So many gyms and all of that. Oh my goodness. Okay. So where do I start? I guess I want to go back and just dig a little bit deeper into growing slow and planning. And would you talk about your thoughts about planning versus strategy and how did you make the plan to grow your business?
Okay, well, it's about no surprises. If I need to work with construction people,
Oops,
clients,
you
or
froze.
distributors and providers,
Oh,
surprises, I needed to have target dates and I needed to know if someone can or cannot do something. Plus, in regards to brand new clients, if someone calls me on a Friday and says, Richie, I need 20 people by Monday, no. Let's be realistic. It's not like I have a line of people outside waiting all day, every day. I compete against Amazon. And so it's not like I'm a devil's advocate, but let's just talk about the things that may happen. Someone might get hit by a bus. Okay. As you can see, internet, there might not be redundancy. There could be an electricity issue if someone's working from home. Something could happen to their computer. Who knows? And so I just want to make sure it's not that want these issues, but I like character during chaos. If we can discuss what would happen if I had to call you, that's a good way to do it. And maybe I just like a checkpoint and 1 to 2 weeks worth of a cushion so I'm not scrambling and making bad decisions. But then again, in Costa Rica, things do work a little bit differently than other places. So I might need to be not aggressive, but a little more assertive than normal because I just don't want to wait a week when the guy's just taking his time. I might actually just drive out to his distributorship and take, after purchasing it, what I need back instead of waiting for some guy that can't get his van for 3 days. It's so you just got to take a deep breath and realize on certain days there's long lines or there's potholes or double pay holidays and stuff. It's just the price you pay for being here. I can't be
yeah.
expecting them to adjust to what we do in Philadelphia.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so, what would be your advice to small business owners as they're starting their business and thinking about, okay, scaling, planning, strategy? Do I get investors? Do I not get investors?
hmm I think the number one thing any entrepreneur should think about is their ethics. You should never sell your soul for $1. Please do things legally. And if you're going to grow a business like myself, I have to pay the caja, the Social Security. I have to pay the aguinaldo, which is the Christmas bonus. I got to pay my taxes. 'Cause if you don't, you're going to get caught. And then there's your reputation. If you think you're going to do something on the sly with an employee, if they think you're doing that, what else are you doing? So As much as I'd like to look the other way, absolutely not. I'm a guest here. I have to follow the rules. Now, it doesn't mean that if Billy's late 5 minutes, I'm going to fire him. Those are the sort of things you give a break to, or someone needs a timeout. But if they're blatantly breaking a labor law or something with banking where they're just making excuses, you have to make that mature decision. That's number one. Number two, it's about pacing. As much as I'd love to grow to 1,000 people, and I could do it, there's a certain pace. And I don't think it's cool to work 100-hour weeks or to say I'm so busy. That's not impressive to be with somebody. It's almost like the nerds in high school, no offense, but when they used to study on Fridays, they didn't have to do it on Sundays. And so you're like, you wait a second, you got your homework done before the weekend? They're like, yeah. You're like, you're a nerd. I'm like, wait a second, on Sunday night, I'm trying to get it done while they're relaxing, watching 60 Minutes with their pop. And so it's the sort of thing that I like preparation. As a child, I was very late and I was always behind in doing my homework on the bus, but not now. When it comes to business responsibility and money, I like to be ahead of the game. Why? Because there's always one thing you forgot, one thing you need to double check, or just keep testing everything. Keep trying those screws and make sure nothing's loose. And that's important for business and also to take on partners. Well, it all depends. Really all depends. One of the worst things you could ever do is have a bad partner because they'll force you to do something. They might do something bad with the company. So I was lucky. My wife is my partner. And so we're in different departments, but when we blend together, we support one another. So that works out fine. And so if you need to start even slower by not having a partner and being completely 100% in control, that's fine. But if you have a partner that is involved with the technical side, well, by all means, you need that individual or the one that's the master in marketing and SEO and things like that. Well, there you go. And even if you're the brains and you need somebody as the face man and representative, that has value as well. And I think that's okay. So maybe just have parameters there, maybe take it in stages. Or as I say before, don't do a bait and a switch and a surprise when you're in too deep. The worst thing ever is setting up something and then all of a sudden they try to change the terms on you when you think you're in too deep. That puts a very bad taste in your mouth. But I always believe that 40 hours a week is part-time, Yolanda. 80 hours is full-time for a CEO. 100 hours, you're a beast. But if you're currently working, you can easily put in time in the mornings, in the evenings, and on the weekends so you're still responsible with your family and finances and you're testing waters. And so, and finally, for entrepreneurs, don't be hard on yourself. There are certain skills you should be practicing public speaking. You should be a very good writer. Don't depend on AI. Be a good listener. Learn how to take notes. Do meeting minutes. If you get on the phone with somebody at a company prior to a transfer, give a positive escalation. Remember the name of the secretary and use that because it separates you from the 99 other people making those calls. And this is prior to any sort of contract. You're really showing good faith. And so if you just do the things that we were raised by our parents and grandparents, I think most people will have their common sense and make the right decisions when being an entrepreneur.
Oh, great advice to entrepreneurs. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing that you talked about was bonuses, paying out the bonuses for your employees. And from our prep meeting, you seem to be very caring of your employees, and your call center has arcade games. And so how do you build that employee culture of innovation, engagement, community? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, every company is different. Like if you surround engineers together, they have that in common. We at a call center, it does have a very interesting reputation, especially with what Hollywood has done with the Wolf of Wall Street boiler room and things like that. But they're linguists. They're getting return on investment on their English. So that's a fun environment for them. It's very colorful. The average age of our agents is about 24. So it's young. Okay. It's the new generation. And but what's the bad side of the industry? It's an extremely large attrition rate. People burn out. making and receiving phone calls. Just one bad phone call, one FU on a phone could be enough to have someone quit. And so I try to have preventative measures or certain timeouts for people if they've had that sort of situation. But I've used my game room as a happy medium. I'm an avid collector of antique pinball machines, so virtual pinball doesn't count. They're playing old machines from the 70s through the 90s.
Oh,
Plus, I have air
cool.
hockey and Pac-Man and stuff. So instead of isolating themselves on TikTok or Instagram, they're meeting people from other departments instead of having a cigarette. It's hand-eye coordination. They can let off steam, recharge batteries, hang out with me and you. Recess was always the best class of the day anyway. Come on, you know that. And since we're adults, it doesn't mean we can't play. And having what they have at home, like a PlayStation or a Wii or any sort of console, fine, they can compete, but it's nothing unique. I wanted it to be a little different. And so I was just trying to think of other ways to stimulate the employee because most people hate where they work, or they tolerate it, or they try to make the most of it. And so for me, besides investing in their training, which I think is fun, because I say it's soft skills they can use outside the office, I walk the rows and I give them mention publicly when necessary. And I'm not going to hit the ball and drag Johnny. I'm not going to cuddle them so they get weak. I need to make sure there's a 45-degree angle so we're constantly moving in a forward direction. And sometimes I'll tell them to sit up in their chair if they're leaning back. I'm like, hey, Eulanda, you need a pillow? And sometimes I'll give them some Philly guilt. Like, come on, I heard you last week. You're out of character today. You're better than this. You call the balls and the strikes. I'm not grilling them every day. But if you're somebody 99 times finds the positive in you, you might listen to me the one time I say, hey, listen, you might have a little mustard right here. And you'll thank me for it because I've earned that sort of respect. And so that's what I try to do slowly. It's readjustments of focus. So at least they move forward because they'll lose their motivation. Sometimes it's tough being a self-starter, but if I can constantly give them quality assurance, listen to their calls and show them, let them listen to themselves, they make that own improvement from self-analysis.
Mhm. That's great. That's great. And call centers do have sometimes not the best reputations. Previously, we've mentioned some about getting hung up on or maybe cursed at or profanity being used by whoever they're calling. How do you dispel some of those negative associations with telemarketing?
Okay, well, sometimes people sell their soul for a golden fiddle. If you have the skills, you shouldn't compromise your ethics and work at a bad call center that does sweepstakes scams to the elderly. That's wrong. And so it's like fire. You have the ability to use this power for warmth, for light, cooking food, you name it. Or you can burn someone with it. It's terrible. It's almost like when you're watching 8 Mile with Eminem when they're doing these rap battles. All they try to do is be quick on their feet, clever, and use those words to strike. It's true. I like that. Like in breakdancing, instead of the gangs fighting, they would have a break off. Yeah, like in Breaking in Beat Street. But not Breaking 2. I didn't like that movie, Electric Boogaloo. That was terrible. But my point being is, instead of fighting, these people will rap it out. They'll dance it out. And I think that's very a nice, clever side to it. But I see it as a cartoon where steam is going out of ears, unless it's directed at me and you. Like if you and I are hanging out and someone says, hey, Yolanda, F you, I'm like, what? But then you're like, Yolanda, this effing place, I can't wait for the food and this and that. And he's just being immature and acting a little stupid. And so if they're cursing at you, they get a warning. Second time, you got to hang up on them. There's dignity. But if they're doing the ear steam coming out, keep on going. Why? I'm going to make you feel terrible about cursing on the phone. You'll be done F-bombing away. And I'll go, are you done, Yolanda? You sure you don't want to curse a little more? And you're like, oh my God, Richard, did I go, right? You did? And then you go, oh, I'm so sorry. I go, would you like to begin again? And then you will say, yes. And then going from a 10 in a distance, now you're at a 2. And you take that mass which would moved and you move it into your own momentum. And you realize I didn't give you a pass. I let you let off some steam. And you're real. This is not like Hollywood G movies where no one curses and everyone sings in between eating food. I mean, it doesn't work like that. Sometimes you stub your toe and something happens. Do you remember the movie A Christmas Story when the guy was changing the tire outside and cursing? And he's like, I never heard these words before. Well, that's real life, my man. That's real life. And so if I can relate to you, maybe I can retain you as a client. Maybe when we're done, you'll give me a referral and say, listen, my little sister who likes to curse too, she might need your services at your company. And I'll go, that's great. And so that's how it works. You sometimes need to break down that fourth wall in Hollywood and see the audience and see real. That's why these shows of the real world, and it makes sense to people. I mean, sometimes they glam it up, but no, I tell you, strangers becomes best friends if they experience something together, even if it's for 5 minutes on a train. They'll never, it's like when those people survive those accidents, they'll keep in touch with each other for the rest of their lives, even though we're strangers prior to that. After that, it's a band of brothers and sisters. And isn't it amazing when you see people that have never met before, but they have something in common, like when someone donates an organ to somebody and then a family member meets that person and they could hear, and then the hugs, or a police officer saves a child's life and then they meet each other like 10 years, 20 years later. No words are spoken. Nothing needs to be spoken, but the embracing and the crying. People try for hours to evoke that emotion out of somebody. And so I think there is an amazing human connection that people have, especially when they're the most vulnerable. You and I could take advantage of it and laugh at somebody when they're breaking down crying. We're not going to treat them like a child, but if you see such emotion in somebody, you have to respect that. Even Rocky cried. And so, I mean, you got to think about these sort of things. I think that's just fine. I think when someone is living true life, being true to themselves, not having a heavy heart, showing real true emotion, it's the strongest thing ever. Did that answer that question?
It did, for being authentic. And yeah, I love that. You also have made throughout our conversation some references that as a Gen Xer, I definitely get, and I think any of our audience members that are Gen Xers, you've mentioned to me in our previous conversation the love of The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller.
Oh, yeah. Fast Times at Richmond High. You got to mention that.
Oh my gosh, that was one of my favorites.
With Mike Damone and the Rat. Come on, Rat, I'll teach you the 5-point plan. It's the best movie ever. Listen, I'm giving your younger generation homework to watch. You guys better watch these movies, then you can relate to our generation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I'm a proud Gen Xer. So what are some generational values that you use to connect with your team and also build your brand too, your own personal brand?
When we grew up, we didn't have computer. Well, you had an Apple IIe or something. You didn't have, just pretend like we didn't have computers and pretend like we didn't have cell phones. Let me tell you what my generation had to do. If I wanted to hang out with you, Eulanda, I'd have to call your house on the landline. Your dad would probably answer. Usually the dad would answer. And me in my third grade nervous voice would take the deepest of deepest breaths and say, hi, Mr. Sanders, may I please speak to Eulanda? Who is this? Oh my God, the follow-up question. It's Richard Blank. Okay, Richard Blank. And then, of course, he'd make me wait for 3 minutes. Come on, get it. Hear the noise in the back. Eulanda, Richard's on the phone. Oh, the whole house. Oh, sweating. How do you sweat in third grade? So that's number one. Number two, you'd have to go to somebody's home and knock on the door because I wasn't sure if Eulanda was home. So I'd have to ride my bike to her house. I'd have to knock on the door and say hello to her parents, of course, and see if she's available to come out and play. And it was a random crapshoot. And if she's not home, then I'd ride my bike around the neighborhood until I found her bike in front of the other houses, and then we'd all hang out. That's number two. Number three, if you needed some information in my generation, you'd have to take your bike to the library. You'd have to look up what you're looking at in a card catalog, then you'd hopefully find your book. and either check it out or Xerox those pages. Yeah, Xerox. That was the move back in the day. So what am I trying to say? We used to have to hustle. We needed to be resourceful. We needed to time it. We needed to make plans with people and follow through because if I said Yolanda 2 o'clock at the park, she's not, we got it. How am I going to call her? And so we really were sociable to make plans. And sometimes our tree would tell 5 people, and then they would tell people, and then the next thing you know, everyone shows up for the capture the flag or kick the can game. We grew up playing outside. We would create games. And so I don't know if your younger generation has played kick the can, capture the flag, and certain other things. We do sports all the time, Nerf football in the snow, hockey, you name it. And all we do is say, Yolanda, you got your 5 friends? Yeah, Richie, you got your friends? And she and I would run off to our sets of friends to get our friends to then meet at the park by 1:30. And there she'd follow through. She did it. Just like me. And then so you have 10 people playing wiffle ball. And so that's what our generation would do. Or we would just, my goodness, we would just talk for hours about everything and nothing. Stupid stuff, great stuff. And that's why the Breakfast Club, and the biggest joke about the Breakfast Club is they couldn't make that movie today. These are 5 kids on a Saturday in detention in a library, and they had to talk. And all these kids that were the jock to the preppy girl to the nerd to the space cadet, the rebel, they all had so much in common, but were so different, laughed and cried together and became best friends after that. Today, they all would have been on the phone. Like when I go into the break room, there's 4 people at a table, they're on their phone. And so we would learn something about each other. And we would be there during the times you climbed the tree and fell out of the tree. And so you wonder why you have these best friends from childhood because they saw you at your greatest and weakness and they just grew up with you before you got married and had kids and became famous. And so our old school generation is the coach, is the teacher that gave you the second chance, is the cop that said, okay, kid, you can go. I'll give you a break. And the last thing you want to do is ruin someone's time at a rock concert. You know why? Because your coach, your teacher, and the cop were us when they were growing up. They were kids that were given second chances and taught the right things to do. Why? Because they could relate to us the best. They realized that you have a trajectory in life. It's those movies that say if you hit the lottery, it's one thing. If not, you're destitute. Well, the one teacher could have broken you, right? The one coach could have not put you in the game, and the one cop could have ruined your life at 16 years old and ruined the time. Why? Because you had a beer? Boosh. Because you're hanging out somewhere past curfew or something. Oh, cut the kid a break. You know what I mean? It's just the kind of thing where we all need to grow up once. I'm not saying breaking the rules is the right thing to do, failing or getting in trouble, but some kids need to learn. And sometimes people need to learn certain ways. And that's just the only thing I can say respectfully. If you have children, or if you're trying to give advice, that you don't see everything that your kids do. Even in the 50s, people used to climb out of windows and go to the Bob. So don't think that your parents were angels. And so it's the sort of thing that just be patient with people. And you might have even a clearer and better relationship.
Oh, great comments about being patient with people and meeting them where they are, because we don't seem to be as patient as we should be or could be with people.
We're thinking of ourselves, that's all.
So true. So true. Well, what advice would you give to a Gen Xer who decides they want to start a business? Because our generation, some of them are retiring or deciding, I'm tired of corporate world. I'm tired of the way things are. I'm to a point where I want to do things myself. So what's your advice? And then also with that, because you mentioned play earlier, how do you inject play into some new adventure that you might take on as a Gen Xer?
I think the play is an excellent way to decompress your stimulation. Like if you take a long walk, long shower, long plane or bus ride, eventually your mind starts wandering, correct? And that's where you get your best ideas. And so I think maybe through play, washing your car on a Sunday, goofing around with your buddies, You might have that idea that you wouldn't have had if you just sat at your desk chewing on your pencil with writer's block. That's number one. Number two, our generation. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. That's number one. Number two, do not be fooled with what's out there. Could I have been 100,000 agents and a titan in the industry? Maybe. I don't know. Have I lost clients because of my structure? Yes. And I'll tell you why. A, it's in regards to pricing with the East, with India and the Philippines. So it's not on merit. But some people see a boss that's hands-on as somebody that is desperate. It's almost like a restaurant that's not doing well or doesn't have cash that the owner goes in the kitchen and makes a plate. Not at all. Not at all. Do you remember the movie Big with Tom Hanks? The owner of the toy store walked around the store and danced on the keyboard with people, and you didn't even know it was like undercover boss. Why can't somebody that owns a restaurant make a dish for somebody? That's what got him in the first place, and he loves it. Why can't he go above this? He doesn't even need the money. Remember Dave Thomas from Wendy's? You saw him in the kitchen all the time. That was a huge marketing thing for him. And I bet you Dave Thomas loved making hamburgers once a month somewhere. And I tell you what, that's why businesses run so well. I'll jump on a call every now and again, or I'll be there, not because I'm cracking a whip and looking to fire someone, because I haven't lost my fidelity. I still love this. Why do you think individuals teach painting classes? They're the greatest artists and they want to pay it forward. You want to get paid, you'll make your money. Fine. But I'm thinking of the philosophy of paying it forward. And so us Generation Xers that know how to give second and third chances and the right things that were said in the movies we watched and the books we read, and that's all. Because if you're true to yourself, I think this AI chat is fine. I think it can help with certain things, but there's nothing better than writing your own composition. And if you take 1,000 pictures and they're all bad, but you got that one, you will never get the butterflies if you constantly do AI. You'll never get the sincere empathy, the blood, sweat, and tears, or the essence of Eulanda. I would have never, ever, the point of the pyramid you will never get unless it's the interaction between her creating, me receiving, and both of us through that electromagnetic energy transfer. Will always be a cold metal bench at a bus stop. It's convenient, but it's not raw. And so once again, do not be fooled for what you see on TV. I'm a boss that collects pinball machines. No one does that. None of my friends started a call center. None of my friends were Spanish majors. So how in God's name can I compare it to the majority of my friends and people I went to school with? And then I look at it at a much larger scale. But in the world, I'll find some people that might have a game or learn Spanish at a center. Fine, I might meet someone. But for the most part, I had to, in my hero's journey, create my own. I had to slay Medusa with that blade and just to take on life. And so it's a scary thing, but it's the most beautiful thing, because when I'm 99 years old, about to be 100 and about to die, I'm going to look back on my life and know that I did. And that's a very nice thing to feel at the end.
Oh, I thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I truly love that you said that, it's okay to jump in and do some of those things that you like to do. If you want to go make a burger and you have a restaurant and you want to go into the kitchen and put the burger together, that's great. If you want to jump on and do some calls, if you own a call center, it's okay to do that, because those are some of the things that you enjoy doing. Some people feel that leaders or managers or directors or CEOs shouldn't be that hands-on.
No. They should have the monocle, the mustache, right? The cigar, the top hat. I'm thinking what the Monopoly guy, belly, right? Sitting there with his legs crossed on his desk with the big money bag, right? Money bag. Hey, what schmucks? You got to be kidding me. Don't you realize that when you do these things, besides getting the self-satisfaction, think about when the people look at you and how they respect you. That's the real deal.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
greatest leaders are with their people,
Yeah. Yeah.
leading the
Yeah. Yep.
charge.
Yep. And they're doing. And just a little sidebar, there's been points of my career where yes, I have, as a leader, jumped in to do things and then got ridiculed by some others who weren't willing to jump in to do things. And so I so appreciate that. And then you also mentioned the pyramid. Was that Maslow's hierarchy that you're, okay, you
It
said,
might be.
the pyramid and getting to the top of that, because that self-actualization, that's in Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
It has to be. There is a certain 5% of me that I can only tap when I'm with someone like yourself. I can't do these things alone.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, this has been just absolutely delightful. And as we wrap up, I want to get your definition of innovation.
Innovation is image streaming. Innovation is having vision. Like the flex capacitor when Doc Brown hit his head and he saw it. Sometimes people have these visions or these dreams. I mean, if you want to talk about innovation, you can think of the Industrial Revolution and putting things together, the widget or the people in the science lab with the big whiteboard and all the numbers and charts and designs. My innovation is the connection from nothing to something. And it had to have come from somewhere. And it's the metaphysics that we will never be able to truly explain that somehow puts you where the stars are aligned and everything seems right, where your mind and body are at the right place for you to have this idea that pops into your head and then you put it into action. The first image I had, besides the call center, which I worked in, so I knew the industry, but my innovation came with the logo. I was sleeping one night and I had this vision of Art Deco building because I love that style and Broadway font and CCC in neon lights. So I woke up the next day, bought some clay and put together what I think my logo should look like. And so in the course of those hours of thinking and putting it together, like as a child playing on a floor, more and more I was putting it into it. I knew perfectly well that this is exactly where I needed to be to get that chispa going, get that spark, blow on it a little bit. Hey, Eulanda, I'm seeing some smoke. Wait a second. I see a spark. Wait a second. It ain't going out. Wait a second. I think I can make this into inferno, something huge. Either grow big or blow up. But guess what I created? Something out of nothing. Like a magician that does a red herring, a sleight of hand. But in this case, it wasn't a sleight of hand. It was literally a feeling that turned into a focus, that turned into an idea, that came out of me into something that was physical so I could see it, that then all of a sudden turned into that. So my good friend, innovation just doesn't have to be in business. Innovation could be a beautiful thought to have with a loved one, or innovation could be something with your own health. So instead of forcing yourself to go to a gym, maybe you like other things to do. And maybe since I spoke Spanish and one of my friends did, I met a bunch of people that they would have never met. Not that they didn't want to, but they wouldn't have been able to communicate with them. And so think that you should be able to open your eyes and your ears to other communities where, just like you and I in the beginning, where I met you, water seeks its own level. Water seeks its own level. And if anybody in the future ever says to me, hey, you know Eulanda Sanders, that's my buddy. Doctor's great. I'll remember you for the rest of my life. And the fact, and I know we're going to continue talking and stuff, hopefully see you one day, but I do know this, that in my lifetime, the fact that I was able to spend an hour with you, that is a beautiful candle that is never going to go out, that will last me the rest of my life. And so if you can do this with people, if it's 5 minutes, if it's an hour or a lifetime, try to share magic and happy and special so that someone remembers you. And when they hear your name, they smile and they go, I like that person. I know that's my buddy. And that's just a beautiful way to live life where you can be happy for others. Me today, you tomorrow.
Oh, Richard, thank you for that definition and then also walking us through actually putting it in practice and in the example that you gave, and then wrapping it up just beautifully with the humanity part of it.
That's right.
So appreciate you. I will definitely be bugging you about being on the podcast again in the future. And you have just given us so many nuggets of advice and inspiration. So thank you again for being here.
My true pleasure, Eulanda.
To our listeners, if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who might need to hear this message. And do not forget to follow us on social media and check out our website and stay connected and keep innovating in your own life. So thank you for tuning in. Keep innovating, keep dreaming, and keep making a difference.